yeah, I suppose we should make a start. So, yep, welcome to all the councillors and those who've... I'll just wait for Councillor Allgood to sit down. Yeah, can you hear me? No, you can't hear me. Okay. Okay, is that better? Okay. I normally don't have a problem speaking up. Okay, so welcome to everyone who's come to join us for this meeting today. Just introduce the Democratic Services Officer, the lovely Rebecca Perrin here. We've got Graham Courtney joining us as one of the planning officers, and we've got the webcasting officer, Amy Buckley. So I'd just like to say, I think over to Graham to do the first bit, I think. Or do I do it? Do you to read that webcasting bit? Okay, so... Just have to put this bit out. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting my bits and pieces together. Here we go. It's on the next. Sorry, I found it. Here we go. So this meeting is to webcast. Members are reminded of the need to activate the microphones before speaking. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the lower public seating area, it is likely that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in the possibility that your image will become part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human and data protection rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should move to the upper public gallery. And I'd like to also comment at the same time that I'm a voting chair today. And over to, we've got, I think that's it really, isn't it? So, number 1, 2, do you want to say anything? And apologies for absence next.
We have apologies from Councillor Williamson, Councillor Murray, Councillor Brooks, Councillor Judy Jennings and Councillor Bob Jennings.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sure.
Could you just note lateness for Councillor Patel? I think he's on his way.
Okay, noted. Can I propose, as you can see, my vice chair seat is empty, so can I propose Councillor Rizvi to join as vice chair if there's no objections? If I could get somebody to second that. Brilliant. Councillor Sunga, second, thank you. Thank you. While he joins us, if we could have declarations of interest. Anyone? Oh, Councillor. Oh, I'm sorry, Lyon. Councillor Lyon.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 10 because I know the resident at the bottom of the garden. I think it's number 1 or 2 Oak Lodge Avenue.
Okay, it's noted.
Councillor, could I just, are you remaining in the meeting? Remaining in the meeting.
Yeah, as I said, it's non-pecuniary interest and I will remain in the meeting and will be voting.
Okay. Brilliant, thank you. Yes, you wanted, yes.
Yeah, thank you. I'd also like to declare an interest in the same line as Councillor Lyon by virtue of knowing the one of the, I don't think she's speaking on it, but one of the neighbours who backs into the lawn of number 1 Grange Crescent.
Okay, and yours is non-pecuniary?
It's non-pecuniary, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, minutes to confirm the minutes of the last meeting of the committee held on the 31st of August, if everyone's happy with those minutes. Wow, brilliant, thank you. Sign it off. And any other business?
No, Chairman.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Go for it, Councillor Jogdale.
Okay, no, it's fine. I was just asking, someone had connected the webcast with just numbers. I was just asking who it was because it wasn't quite clear.
Okay.
I'm trying to ascertain that. Can I ask who you are, please? 845.
I'm Jay Hirani, the architect for 1 Grange Crescent.
Right. Rebecca, I didn't know about Mr. Harani.
Jackie,
he
he's okay to speak. I've spoken with the chairman. It's fine.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other business?
No, chairman.
Brilliant, thank you. So item number 7 is just the planning policy brief note for us to note. I think members are used to this one, so yeah, noted. Thank you. Number 8, item number 8 is site visits. No requests for them? Brilliant, thank you. So I think we've got the first one on the list is the planning application for EP 0935/20, and I believe Mr. Courtney's got something to tell us about that.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. There has been an email sent round. I'm not sure if members have seen that. Unfortunately, item 9, which is 20 Oakwood Hill Industrial Estate, due to issues coming to light with regards to land ownership, this application cannot be discussed at tonight's meeting and instead will be presented at a future District Development Management Committee.
Okay. Happy with that? Yep. Thank you. So apologies to anyone who's come to attend for that meeting, but it will be discussed at the DDMC. Item number 10, application EPF 2954/21. And just as a quick reminder before Mr. Courtney starts, to all the councillors, if I can please, I want everyone to be able to say what they have to add and say for tonight's meetings, but if we can keep any new points and avoid repetition and only really try and talk about new points, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I just need to ask, Jackie, can you please, I think the screen share has been disabled. Could you just allow me to share the screen?
Yep, done that, Graham.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. So this application is for a variation of condition on a previous consent to allow for changes to the design of the extensions. The proposal is before tonight's committee due to an objection from the parish council along with 2 neighbours. Officers are recommending that permission is granted subject to conditions. The site is located on Grange Crescent within the built-up area of Chigwell. This shows the original building here. Planning permission was previously approved for extensions to this property, as shown on this top left-hand drawing. The top right-hand plan shows what is being proposed. These relate to the inclusion of a recessed balcony, changes to the ground floor roof, and some changes to the dormer and fenestration, some alterations to the dormer and fenestration. There are no alterations to the front elevation over that previously approved, so this is what was previously approved, and there'll be no changes to that. These show the previously approved floor plans, and just here you can see there's a roof light. This is the proposed floor plans with the recessed balcony shown in place of the roof light. So the application was deferred from a previous meeting so that a member's site visit could take place. This is, as can be seen on the screen here, this is what has been built on site. It is worth noting that what is in front of members for approval is not the as-built scheme. It is as proposed on the plan, so any elements of the development as built on site that are not subject to this application will remain part of the enforcement investigation. The most contentious part of the as-built scheme is this balcony area, which allows for views into neighbouring gardens and causes overlooking. So again, just to be clear, this balcony is not proposed for retention as part of this application, and it is not supported by officers since it does cause loss of amenity to neighbours. This shows some views to the rear from the upper storeys. Again, it should be noted that a large outbuilding that can be seen here is not part of this application and is subject to separate enforcement investigation. This is a view from the first floor window. So as previously stated, the as-built balcony is considered to be harmful to neighbours and unacceptable. The proposal in front of members today is to install an inset balcony with railings angled to a height of 1.37 metres. This would limit the depth of the balcony and ensure that the roof screens views of the neighbouring properties to reduce overlooking. The other proposed changes to the roof and the fenestration and the dormer are not considered to be unacceptable in design terms and do not harm neighbours. As such, the application, as shown before members, is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Back to you, members.
So we have a speaker for this one. Yes, we do. We've got Parish Council, Sugarwell Parish Council Councillor Jacko. Yeah, on Zoom. Yeah.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you to councillors who called for and councillors who attended the site visit earlier this week. For your information, I've been sent photographs by neighbours showing the privacy panels and plants that were installed on around the balcony prior to the visit have now been removed. Planning permission was previously granted for a rear extension that included a small, higher level window looking to the rear from the master bedroom. This application sounds innocuous, a variation to a condition. But condition 2 is the most basic condition that underwrites the integrity of the planning system. It requires the building is constructed according to the approved plans. Of course, as a build progresses, a minor amend might be needed, the redesign of a roof line to allow for drainage, for example. But this is not that. What is being discussed today is what the householder has actually built. Instead of a small, high-level balcony, they built full-height French doors leading onto a balcony. Not a Juliet balcony, a full balcony that even with the inset can be stood on, sat on, was filled with plants for the site visit and from where the occupants of One Grange Crescent can see into the many rooms of the houses behind them. It is this that the parish council and residents have such an issue about. Not only is the privacy and amenity of the homes to the rear severely impacted, but this is a blatant disrespect of our planning system. Too often we see in Chigwell construction that is not in line with permission. When challenged, it's been presented as some sort of fait accompli, when the reality is that if these had been the original plans, they would have been refused. Councillors who have visited the properties have been able to see that the resulting balcony impacts significantly on the amenity and privacy of neighbouring properties to the rear. They saw and heard, this is not an error, this is a blatant and significant breach of the original planning application. If you do not object, what message does that send? That anyone is free to ignore the restrictions of a planning permission and build what they want? That it's worth the risk? That there's a good chance they'll get away with it? That's not the message the vast majority of law-abiding residents and homeowners of Epping Forest want to hear from you. Do councillors want to maintain the integrity of the planning system? Do you want to send the message that the most basic planning condition that appears on every application, builds to the approved drawings and design, should be met? Then you must refuse this most blatant and deliberate ignoring of that condition. This is not a minor amend, it's a deliberate refusal to abide by this council's previous decision, and the subsequent damage is considerable. We ask that councillors refuse this application on the grounds of amenity loss and loss of privacy to neighbours to the rear, and enforcement act immediately to ensure this building is constructed as per the original approval. Thank you.
Thank you. And we also have the applicant's agent to speak next.
That's great.
Mr. Hirani, yeah.
Yeah,
Go for
so
it.
thank you very much for letting me speak on behalf of my client. and thank you for the councillors coming over last week to visit the site as well. I'd like to point out firstly that 1A and 1B Grange Crescent, which are sites to next door to our client site, have been granted approval in 2014, and they have a balcony overlooking the same issue. I don't see why that wasn't highlighted in 2014 and now it's becoming an issue in 2022. It's the same overlooking issue to Oaks Avenue. Secondly, we have set the balcony as an insert balcony where it's highlighted in drawing 01 MA03, which clearly shows that we've now having a natural privacy screen to the neighbouring properties left and right. We understand that the current situation, yes, it is overlooking, and that's why we have redesigned it so it's an inset balcony where it's no longer an overlooking issue. And we would like to also point out that the Town and Country Planning Act state that we're allowed to build a dwelling within 18 to 22 metres away from a rear dwelling. The current site situation is 45 metres or over 45 metres away. So I don't see why this is now become an overlooking issue when I can simply design a house in between that kind of distance away. This is in the Town and Country Planning Act. Also, I'd like to raise it, which a big one is the council do support this application. So I don't see where this should be refused on, as per the previous councillor has mentioned. We find this is a supportable design, and the balcony is in keeping with the neighbouring properties. Also, I'd like to mention that the flats opposite have balconies on 4 levels, or I believe 3 levels, sorry, looking into our property as well. The same overlooking issue everybody's got in this area. I don't see this is going to be any different to anyone else on that one. I appreciate your time for letting me speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As a ward councillor, Councillor Lyne, did you want to go first?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, this has been quite a contentious development all the way through. There's been permitted development across the back, and I understand from what's been said that there is a breach investigation going on. So it looks to me certainly that the building hasn't been built to plan. That is clear from the dormer window, which on the plans we saw before. You might want to bring those up again. Can we have a look at the plans for the rear? Right, those plans show that the dormer window stops just at the bottom of the apex, and in fact it doesn't, it goes right across. The roof below, with the 3 windows in the middle, that roof is a lot higher. So there are a number of issues in terms of the planning and the building that is actually being constructed. Also, this balcony was originally, I think, on the plans identified as a Juliet balcony, which wouldn't allow access. And you can see from that picture there that there is some long poles and some green vegetation, which I think was an attempt to actually disguise the fact that this is a balcony that people can actually gain access to. And it has been demonstrated by that the actual balustrade there. And this causes a problem to the neighbour at the bottom of the garden. I know that there was a question of, well, other people have got balconies, but each planning application, as we know, is taken on its merits, and I don't think there can be a precedent consideration. And I believe that balcony is excessive to this development and does cause considerable overlooking to the neighbour at the bottom of the garden. That hasn't been considered in this planning application. I'm concerned it hasn't, but it is a major concern. And I do believe that there are a number of issues with this development that have probably exceeded the plans that were submitted. And I won't be supporting this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay, can Mr. Courtney come in? Yeah.
Sorry, if it's all right, I'm just going to come back on a couple of points mentioned now. Yes, there is, as you can see in the photograph here, and as Councillor Lund pointed out, there are some works that have taken place on site that aren't shown even on the latest plans. That's why I was trying to make it clear in my presentation that all we are assessing are the plans in front of us, not what's been built on site. What's built in site is subject to enforcement investigation. If the most recent plans are allowed tonight, then anything that's been built on site not in accordance with those will continue to be under investigation and relevant action will be taken. So that's just the first thing I want to point out. Second thing, just to clarify, just because I'm not sure it's complete, the balcony that's shown on this, or just to further clarify, the balcony shown on this plan is not what's being proposed today and is not what's under consideration today. We completely agree, this is an unacceptable balcony, what they've built. It does cause overlooking. It is not something that we would accept. Obviously what they are proposing to do is to create a balustrade within the roof area here, an angled balustrade so that you can't actually step out beyond the apex of that roof there. It is, again, Councillor Lyons correct, there's reference to a Juliet balcony. It's not a Juliet balcony. A Juliet balcony, as most of you would know, doesn't allow you to walk out. This will still allow you to walk out, albeit it'll be a much smaller balcony than what they're showing here, and the idea is that you won't be able to look left or right over the neighbours because of the roof. But no, you're absolutely correct. It's not a Juliet balcony. It is a balcony, but it is a reduced balcony from what's shown in this photograph. I just wanted to clarify that for the decision-making purposes.
Did you want to come back on that, Councillor? Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do appreciate the fact that the side visibility will be better or be reduced, so the overlooking to the neighbours on the left and right will be fine. But what we've got here is the neighbour at the rear end that won't, opposite this particular balcony, that won't be protected at all. And that's my concern. How do we protect that neighbour from overlooking at the end of the two gardens? They may be a long distance away, but it is still an overlooking issue.
Okay, noted. Any other councillors? Councillor Sunga. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Where do we start? Chigwell. What's happening in Chigwell, there seems to be this pattern that's building that it's okay that once you've got planning permission granted, you can just about build what you like. Somebody who's a recipient to an application that's I won't speak about today, but obviously I live next door to a property and they've done exactly this. They've gone over and beyond what's been granted, and this is actually a retrospective application for members. It's disheartening that what they've done is they've gone out of their way to build what they want and disregard any respect for their neighbours. What neighbours from across, which is Millwall Crescent?
No, it's Oak Avenue.
Oak Lodge, but the neighbours, the houses that the gardens back onto Grange Hill Crescent. I have sympathy for them because they're overlooking a site that's not well. It's not very warm and it's not very pleasing. I've got 5 things that I want to share with the committee here. There's 5 things that I have some concerns about. First is privacy issues. Secondly is overlooking issues. Thirdly, it's harm to the area it's causing, especially people that are looking from their gardens to this particular area. And the fourth one is obviously this application is subject to an enforcement that's been done, which we can't speak about tonight. And the fifth one is what the parish chairman mentioned, was what message are we giving to other applicants that are looking to put their application and build properties? What are the intentions as well? I see that this applicant had no intentions of engaging with their local neighbours and disregard. And for that reason alone, I will also be will also not be supporting this application. Like Councillor Lyons said, that's his ward as well. So I shall not be supporting this application tonight. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, any other councillor wish to comment? Yes, Councillor Norkie.
Thank you, Chair. I was at the viewing a few days ago, and one thing I noticed is that even with the reduction of the balcony, there's still going to be significant overlooking, which to my mind, I think is unacceptable.
Thank you. Councillor Pond.
Yes, I tend to agree with strictures made by Councillor Lyon on this one. I'm afraid I did not go to the site visit, though I had intended to do so. It just didn't happen. Apologies for that. We have visited this site previously in connection with another application, you know, it seemed to me that when the agent spoke, he was saying, well, there's already a good deal of overlooking, a little bit more won't do any harm. And that I do not think is accurate. There comes a time when we have to say so far and no further, and I think we are with that on this application.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pond. Anyone else? Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask the officer, as I understand it, this is a balcony which is going to be reduced in the depth. I think that in itself is a bit unusual, isn't it? Do we normally give planning applications to these sort of balconies? In my sort of experience, we normally, in cases like this, we normally go for a Juliet balcony, not one that protrudes at all. And so it does seem a bit odd, even this, allowing this balcony, even at the reduced width.
They are certainly less common than either standard balconies or Juliet balconies. I mean, we do allow inset balconies. There are examples of those that have been applied for and approved and no doubt built. But no, they're less common, I must admit, but they're not unusual necessarily.
Okay, if everyone's had a chance to speak, I'll go to the next bit, speak now. Okay, so the officers have a recommendation of approval, so I guess we could go for a vote and say all in favour of that vote to put your hands up.
It's nobody, Chairman.
Okay. So, so then can we have a proposal for refusal next? Vote, sorry. Yeah. Oh, sorry, yeah. Anyone, sorry, voting against, yes. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It's 14, Chairman.
Okay.
And there should be 1 abstention.
Any abstentions?
Just because the councillor came in a little bit late.
Ah, okay. Councillor Gabbett. Is that the one? Yeah. Are you voting against, for, or abstaining?
I don't have any declarations of interest, and apologies for coming in late.
And then the application itself?
I can't vote.
Oh, no, okay, that's fine. Sorry, yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, so now if we can have a proposal for refusal, Councillor Lyon?
Yeah, I think a suggestion for a proposal refusal is that there is considered overlooking privacy issues and also the fact that there was an original balcony, Juliet balcony proposed, which is not the case, whether it's inset or otherwise. It's not what was originally proposed. Yeah, well, whether it's out of character with the street scene because it's a rear view. So, but I think essentially overlooking and invasion of privacy would be two of the suggestions.
Are we happy with that?
Yeah, I would probably suggest that's a single reason for refusal, which isn't a problem. Overlooking loss of privacy, loss of amenity, it's kind of all rolled into one. Certainly we wouldn't be looking at reason for refusal because they haven't built in accordance with the previous plans. Obviously, we have to assess an application blind to the fact that they may have already commenced the works. So we couldn't refuse on that, but certainly, yeah, the loss of privacy, loss of amenity.
Could we add bulk to that as well?
You can do if there's a bulk or design concern, then that certainly could be a reason for refusal if somebody wants to put that forward.
Yeah, Councillor.
Yeah, happy to include that. It improves the position.
Okay, do I have somebody to second it? Oh, Councillor Pont's gone right quick there. Yeah. And all those in favour of the refusal?
14, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe just one abstention.
And yeah. Just making a note. Thank you very much. So now that application's been refused, we can move on to the next item, which is number 11, 76 Alders Road. The planning officer for this one is?
I'm doing all of them.
Oh, okay. Brilliant.
Thank you, Chairman. Oh, apologies. So this application, this is a revised application for the demolition of the existing dwelling and its replacement with 6 flats. It is before members, since there is an objection from the Town Council and a number of neighbours. The application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions and a legal agreement. This is the third application for this development. The first application was refused on the Balkan design, the loss of the original dwelling, and due to insufficient amenity space. This was appealed and dismissed purely on insufficient amenity space and the impact on the Epping Forest Special Area of Conservation. The second application amended the proposal, but again was refused, albeit purely on impact on the Epping Forest Special Area of Conservation. This latest refusal is currently at appeal, but there's been no decision made as of yet. Since there was only a single reason for refusal on the previous application, the design of the proposal has not changed. The sole consideration is therefore whether the development successfully mitigates any potential harm to the Epping Forest Special Area of Conservation. So these are the existing, these photographs show the existing dwelling and street scene. I'm just going to flick through those. This shows the existing and proposed street scene in Algers Road. This shows the existing and proposed street scene in Lower Park Road. These show the proposed elevations. I'm just going to flick through the proposed floor plans. As I say, these are unchanged from the previous application. This shows the proposed site layout. As can be seen, there is no on-site parking provided. And this shows the level of amenity space provided, which was previously agreed to have overcome concerns. So as I say, the only previous reason for refusal was based on the harm to the Epping Forest Special Area of Conservation as a result of the 6-fold increase of residential units on the site. A signed legal agreement has now been submitted that commits to contributions of £1,675 for air pollution mitigation, £1,760 for recreational mitigation, and £9,029.92, strangely, for electric vehicle charging point contribution, along with the necessary monitoring contributions. The additional mitigation offered here over the previous refusal is the electric vehicle charging contribution, which is considered necessary since there is no on-site parking provision and therefore no opportunity to provide electric charging points for future occupants of the site. So in lieu of this, a contribution is being offered to assist funding of electric charging points in public car parks, or a public car park, to offset the lack of electric charging points within the site. These contributions, along with the condition requiring superfast broadband, would be sufficient to mitigate against the harm to the forest that would result from this development, and as such, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions and the signed legal agreement.
Okay, so we've got a ward councillors, Councillor Baldwin, and, oh, we've got speakers first, yes, I always forget who we are. We've got Mr. Bo Poraj, have I pronounced that correctly? Yeah, hello. Hello, yes, go for it. Yeah, turn your microphone.
Nobody without a vested financial interest would look at 76 Algiers Road and think it was a good idea to knock it down and build high-density flats. Last time the applicant brought these plans to planning committee, they were unanimously rejected. They have a detrimental effect on the EFSAC and are a gross overdevelopment that is out of keeping and represents a six-fold increase in density. Despite expensive surveys designed to try and obfuscate the obvious, it is clear to anyone with common sense that there is not enough amenity space, outdoor space, wheelchair access, privacy, or provision for parking. And the suggestion that this is a car-free development and that anyone who could afford to buy such a flat wouldn't want a car is not credible. In short, these plans bear no regard for the area, for the current residents, or for any future residents of this development. They are simply a cynical attempt to extract maximum profit. The only change in plans from the previous application is the addition of funding for 2 EV charging points in a completely different location. To quote a local resident, if these plans were reasonable, there would be no need for the developer to try and bribe the council. This is a very commonly held sentiment amongst many local residents. Should this proposal be accepted, the logical conclusion is that any controversial site can be built on if the price is right. As residents, we call into question a planning policy that allows limitless applications. This once handsome Edwardian house has been allowed to become derelict. It has been left to ruin for over 4 years. It's used as a toilet by teenagers, by animals, and it is now an eyesore. No doubt this favours the applicant's case for demolition, and if this process continues to drag on, causing anxiety and uncertainty for residents and wasting time and resources, surely a planning policy that allows limitless application serves only the interest of developers who can afford to play a waiting game that is destructive to both residents and the local area and sets a very dangerous precedent. The house diametrically opposite 76 has been used as a drugs farm for a number of years. And now that house has been raided and can no longer be used to profit from drugs, the owner has submitted plans to build 2 houses in a rear garden that is barely big enough for a static caravan. If the plans for 76 go through, this sets a precedent that any house can be knocked down and replaced with high-density flats. As residents, we were extremely grateful and relieved to our councillors for unanimously rejecting these plans at the last time of asking, for representing us as council tax-paying residents, for coming down on the side of common sense and for protecting Loughton from overdevelopment. And we trust that you view this amended application with the same degree of incredulity that we do. We are not NIMBYs. We understand the need for new housing and we are not against development per se, but this is not a reasonable development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I believe we've got the applicant himself to speak on behalf of the application. Gary Couch, yep, go for it.
Thank you, Chairman. I had prepared a speech, but I feel compelled to respond to that rather than read out and basically cover what Graham's already covered. We're not increasing the density by 6. We're increasing it by 3 bedrooms. The terminology in the refusal last year was correct in that it said due to the 6-fold increase in the number of dwellings, but of course all we're doing is replacing a huge house with 6 bedrooms and 2 annexes with 6 small flats. So the net increase is 3 bedrooms. It's not overdevelopment. The only point, as Graham said, that was raised in the refusal last year was relating to the uncertainty of the committee around the potential impact on the SAC. So you're right, we did spend a lot of money on a very expensive consultant, produced this 88-page report, which spent a long time on the desk of the council's traffic officer, and he confirmed its findings in that indeed there would be a reduction in vehicle movements, which is contrary to my thinking too, because I thought, when I picked this up on the desk of my land manager, what are we trying to do to increase the density of this development by 6? It's nonsense. He said what I've just said. We're not. When we first acquired this site, we bought it not for profit. We bought it to house our staff. We own a big business, head office is in town. One of the local offices is in Loughton High Street. We have professionals who do not run cars. Youngsters these days, especially graduates, don't want cars. They're concerned about the climate. We bought that site because it's 300 metres from the tube station and 450 metres from Loughton Town Centre. Things have changed since COVID. Nobody wants to go to the office. We don't know what we're going to do. But we've still got the professionals who don't run cars. We thought it was a sensible proposition. And therefore, having a scheme without parking in roads with parking restrictions wouldn't normally present us with an opportunity for profit, because they'd be extremely difficult to sell unless we thought that the buyers would not run cars. Thank you.
Thank you. If you can turn your microphone off as well, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we've got Councillor Jogg as a ward councillor, and Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, one of the ward councillors for Forest Ward. Yeah, so here we go again. So we're back for the third application. I was disappointed it came around without that we haven't received the report from the appeal from the inspector from the previous application. What's before us today seems very, there doesn't seem to be much change from the previous application. So I believe, is that right? Is it an increase in 3 bedrooms? Is that what we have before us? I mean, I'm just trying to differentiate between the previous application. I know obviously we have some mitigation to go towards the our interim strategy, and we have the provision of 2 additional EV charging points, albeit not actually on the premises, because I realise there is no parking provision, but in a public car park, which I found that rather unusual myself. I would have thought, I suppose I'm digressing a bit here, but I would have thought the public car park, the EV points there will be funded from Epping Forest. I think it's quite unusual this for the developer to be providing funding for what would be a public facility. So that I found that a bit unusual. But to stick to the point here, that how does this differentiate from the previous application? If you just could clarify that for me. Oh, yes, sorry.
As I say, there is no physically. There's no difference. The proposal has put forward the number of bedrooms, number of flats, the design, the layout. That's all the same. There is no difference between this one and the previous refusal. The difference is the mitigation measures that are being offered. As I said, the only reason for refusal previously was insufficient mitigation. So the difference here is that there are additional mitigation measures being proposed. Obviously, we would usually, the sort of standard mitigation for residential properties is contributions towards air quality mitigation, contributions toward recreational pressure, depending on where they are, a condition about high-speed broadband, and the provision of electric charging points on site. Obviously, there is no parking on site here. Therefore, we cannot provide electric charging on site. But that doesn't necessarily mean there won't be cars associated with this property. Ideally, yes, we are looking at electric charging points in a public car park. In an ideal world, we would be getting on-street charging points in lampposts, things like that. We are in discussion with Essex County Council so far. They're not hugely keen on implementing this sort of thing. So we're unable to get that because, yeah, it would be nice to actually have on-street charging points directly outside or within the immediate location or locality of this. So the next best thing is the public car parks, as you say. They are largely, electric charging is largely funded by the council, but obviously we are looking at things like this, which assist in the provision of those. The financial contribution here assists in us providing more electric charging points elsewhere, and that's the mitigation, the additional mitigation offered here.
Yeah, let me just come back on that point. Yeah, I mean, I'm almost bereft of words for this because the mitigation is the additional. I mean, we've got some, you know, the obligatory payment for each new build, which I know that is obligatory within 3 kilometres of the SAC. And in addition to that, we've got the provision of 2 EV charging points. I mean, it beggars belief that we are considering this application again, and all we've got is 2 additional EV points. When you consider these flats, the value, the sale value of them could be the 6 flats. They could be $500,000 each. I mean, it's just incredible that this is all that is proposed. So yeah, I think I'll stop talking there, and I'll be interested to see what other councillors have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Corbett. Any other councillors? Councillor Georgia, and then Councillor Georgia.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I agree with all the points that Councillor Baldwin has just raised. I guess the only thing that we are looking at here right now is what they've put forward as mitigation techniques or whatever it's called. I don't think it's good enough. Electric charging points in a car park. I don't even know how far away High Beach car park is, but was there not a car park closer to the site that would have been more relevant for the residents of Loughton itself? I just don't think it's good enough. It's not acceptable, notwithstanding the fact that the actual design, I'm not happy with the design anyway. I think it's completely overbearing, but I know that's not what we're looking at right now. But yeah, I appreciate it's a public car park and it's still contributing to people, but it's not anywhere near where it should be.
Sorry, we couldn't allow discussions in the group.
Yeah, the only thing I'll just come back on is the issue of the location. I'm not going to pretend to know the exact details of it all, but obviously we have liaised with our Stephen Lloyd-Jones, our Sustainable Transport Officer, Council Sustainable Transport Officer, and it's very complicated in terms of where these can go, because it's all to do with the electricity supply and things like this, and he's the one who's identified where these would be able to go in the closest location. So that's why that particular location has been chosen.
Did you want to come back on that, Councillor Georgia?
No, that's fine. I think maybe that's something that we need to look at more closely, but I still think the point stands that it's not acceptable to put it where it is right now.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Can I just we've already heard from you, sir. Sorry, we've already heard from you, sir. Can I just say, if you guys want to discuss, I'm really more than happy for you to take it outside this room, but just not here. Just not here. Sorry, yes, Councillor Pond.
First of all, High Beach Road car park is not in Algiers Road or Lower Park Road. It's on the other side of the high road. I would have said it was almost 10 minutes walk. But I think that's a minor point. The major point is that this committee unanimously refused this application a little while ago. Nothing has changed. The increased mitigation offered is insufficient. The scheme of a monetary contribution per dwelling for possible harm to the air quality of the forest has not been approved by the inspector. It has not been judged in the appeal the firm who own this property put in on the refusal, specific refusal. My suspicion is that the inspector will uphold the reasons and cannot find that the air quality interim mitigation strategy is in any sense justified. And many people would say not only was putting a couple of electric car charging parks in High Beach Road car park, which is a very small car park, a long way from this development, is anything but risible. I think we should simply refuse this application for the same reason that we refused it last time.
Okay, Councillor Wixley.
Well, I couldn't get in quick enough actually to say that High Beach Road car park is quite some distance from this property, and I think it's almost irrelevant. I mean, we might start suggesting no, we put on this basis electric charging points, in Epping for an application in Loughton. Just seems ludicrous to me. But I would say that I think I agree with everything the objector said actually. But I couldn't really support it. I think it's an unfortunate application, and that's I think about all I can say really. But I think it's all been said before.
Okay. Any other councillors? Any other thoughts? Councillor Pond, real quick.
I want to speak again, but I think it might be helpful to the committee if the officer would read out the reasons for refusal last time, because they're not stated in the paper as far as I can see.
I believe he did. We can have that again.
No, sorry, I didn't. Let me have a look. Did we say they're not? Are they in? Sorry, if they're not in the report, then I'll pull up the. No, it's fine. I can. If you give me 2 minutes, I will just pull those up. It's not a problem. It may be useful if a vote is going to be made on the refusal to know the exact wording of that.
I do find it strange, though. All of the cars will be parked and charged there, but then where are they going after they've finished charging? Which is quite strange as well. Yeah.
So.
Perhaps that was just sort of to add to our funds to get one done in the future, I guess. But yeah.
So the previous reason for refusal reads, due to, so I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Due to the six-fold increase in the number of dwellings proposed, the council as competent authority cannot be certain that harm will not be caused to the Epping Forest Special Area of Conservation, contrary to policy NC1 of the adopted local plan and alterations, policies DM2 and DM22 of the submission version local plan, the Habitat Regulations 2017 and the Holohan judgment.
I'd like to move a motion to repeat that reason for refusal on this application. So that would be my suggestion if I can find a seconder.
Yeah, Councillor Georgios the seconder. Yeah, got Councillor Georgios as well. So then I guess I don't need to go through the first stage, do I? No, if we've got a motion for it, yeah. So can we go to vote, and all those in favour of the motion to refuse? Motion to refuse the application?
No, because Councillor Pond
already
Pond's proposed it and someone seconded it, so we take that one.
Yeah, we're skipping the first bit, yeah.
Unanimous again, Chair.
Okay, and yeah, that's fine. So we have the application being refused. Thank you. If we can move on to the next item, number 12, which is 5 Wellfields in Loughton.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
So this application is for a part single-storey, part two-storey rear extension, a single-storey front extension, a rear dormer window and 4 front roof lights. The application is before committee due to an objection from the Town Council and 1 neighbour. The application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. The property is a semi-detached dwelling with an existing single-storey rear extension, as can be seen here. As you can see, the attached neighbour has a significant rear extension themselves, along with a rear dormer. The detached neighbour also has a single-storey rear extension. This just shows the front of the property. As can be seen, the attached neighbour does benefit from front roof lights and a flush ridge. It's not the easiest to see here, but you can just see on this plan that the proposed rear extension would align with the extension of the attached neighbour. So the single-storey rear extension would be 4.98 metres deep and would match that of the attached neighbour. It would be stepped off the boundary with the detached neighbour by 2 metres. The first floor extension would be 2.95 metres in depth and would be set away from both shared boundaries. The front extension would be just under 1 metre in depth and would stretch the width of the house. The single-storey rear extension would be flat-roofed to a height of 3 metres. This would be similar to both neighbouring extensions. Both the first floor rear extension and the front extension would have pitched roofs that would be in keeping with the overall appearance of the dwelling. The alteration to the side roof and inclusion of front roof lights would reflect that on the attached neighbour and would rebalance this pair of dwellings. Whilst the rear dormer is large and is dissected in part by the first floor extension's roof, the dormer has been visually split to soften its appearance and to mirror that on the neighbouring property. As such, the proposal is considered to be acceptable and is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Back to you, Chairman.
Thank you. We don't have any speakers on this application, so we've got Councillor Jennings and Councillor Pond for ward councillors for this.
Chairman.
No.
Just to say, it's not actually in my ward.
Oh,
so,
I shall let.
I think it's a bit of garden land. I think.
Okay.
The house itself is in St Mary's.
Ah, okay. Councillor Kaufman, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I live quite close to this property, and it's been a long day, so I'm going to go off on one slightly.
Thank you for the warning.
So could we have I've got no objections to the front and to the rear extensions. I would like to make sure that permitted development rights are removed from the property. I don't think there's sufficient grounds for me to object, but my rant is to do with the back of the property. And it's a total failure of the planning system here that we allow rear dormers like that, where the flat roofs of the dormers are the same as the apex of the roof. They look appalling. I'm looking at one from my house, which makes me miserable every day, and it looks like a 3-storey block of flats, and it's a house. And the dormers should be subservient to the main roof. So if you look at the photograph, if Mr. Corney wouldn't mind putting the photograph of the back of the building of next door up, where they have one of these dreadful things, that is a disaster. And if you're looking at that, you are depressed and miserable. And we are willy-nilly allowing these things being built, and they're changing our nice area into other areas near us that are not so nice. And people are doing it repeatedly. And because it's next door, how can I stop this? Just because it's there doesn't mean that I should approve it. So I would like to reject this application and say come back with a better design. We need better design in our area, not things that look just simple, add more space inside, but the back of the building looks awful.
Thank you, Councillor Kaufman. Anyone else? No? No other councillors? Oh, Councillor Pond.
Well, I do agree with Councillor Kaufman's rant. But of course, it's not so much against planning policy that he's ranting, it's against permitted development rights. Quite a lot of this would be permitted development. And that's why I think he's right in that you've got to withdraw any remaining PDRs at roof level. Not that I know there are any exactly. These were council houses built for the managers on the Debden Industrial Estate. They were originally quite modest and quite pleasant houses. Since they've been sold into private ownership, the combination of bad taste of owners and lax PDRs has meant that all sorts of excrescences appear, particularly at roof level. I don't think we have very strong grounds for refusing this, but I do deprecate it, and I think we need to withdraw any further PDRs in respect of this.
Okay, I'm mindful to agree to that one actually. So, yep, so the officers have approved the recommended approval. Okay, so if we are going to add that condition, we do need to propose it and second it. Happy to?
If I may then, can I propose that a condition is that we remove further permitted development rights from this property, please?
To approve. Sorry, you're seconding it. Sorry, Councillor Owen?
I just want to check on what grounds are we doing it, because I totally respect the councillor's opinion and I agree with him, but it feels like we're withdrawing the rights because we don't like the design of the loft, which I'm not sure is correct, is my only concern.
I think it would be more to prevent further extensions into the rear elevation or the loft or the single stories. So it's not to... We're imposing this because we don't like the design. It's because we would be worried if anything else were to be done under PDR. But the officer may advise us that he can't do anything else in PDR anyway.
It's obviously always very difficult to give any firm opinion on that without fully assessing it. I suspect there's very little that they could do if this is allowed. Obviously, the full width of the roof slope is pretty much filled up with a dormer, so there's not much scope for additional roof extensions. The entire rear will have an extension already, so there's not much they can do on the rear. Arguably, there could be scope for some form of side extension. A porch is out because they're extending out the front, so it would be very limited. And obviously, it depends on what we're removing. Obviously, there's Class E permitted development rights, which allow for outbuildings. Whether it's reasonable to remove those, I'm not too sure. But that is something that obviously they could carry out, regardless of this scheme. But if members are concerned about further works, then it's certainly a condition that can be imposed. Can I, in that case, just before you go to the vote on that, can we just confirm which permitted development rights we'd be looking to remove? Is it all the permitted development rights, including outbuildings? Is it just extensions to the property? So it'd be...
The main building.
Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Ixley wished to speak. Come in. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to go back a bit. I'm a bit concerned reading of the objections from a neighbour at number 7. I think he's referring to an overhanging guttering, and it says it's not a planning issue. But is this a case where we should provide some sort of informative? That's one question. But my second question is, could I have some clarification as regarding the, I think I'm just trying to find it now. There's reference to 2 roof lights installed within the roof. Are these lights to give rise to sort of light pollution, which could also affect the neighbours adversely?
I'm not sure if this application is proposing same as the one next door, is it?
No, so the roof lights, so you're talking about the roof lights within the single-storey rear extension. So actually, let me just share my screen again for 2 seconds. Unfortunately, it's fairly faint. Oh, sorry, it's not sharing yet. It's fairly faint, so you may not be able to particularly see, but there is a roof light proposed here and another one proposed here, which would just bring some additional light into the kitchen and dining room there. I mean, it's a residential property. There's light spills from windows, outdoor lights, things like that. I'm not entirely convinced this would have significant impact in terms of light pollution to the neighbours.
Yeah, it's a flat roof, isn't it?
Yeah. And then the other issue was about the gutters, which, as you point out, isn't a material planning consideration. I mean, it's covered by building regulations, it's covered by ownership issues, things like that. I mean, we can put an informative on, that doesn't do any harm, just to flag up that they obviously can't build over their neighbour's property without consent, but it is unnecessary, but it's an informative, so it doesn't matter. It's purely there for guidance purposes, if you so wish.
Councillor Singer and then Councillor Bottom.
Thank you. I wasn't going to speak on this, but I've just been looking at Google Maps, and it's 5, 7, number 9. I think, if I'm right, the applicant is trying to mirror what they've done there, and then I think number 11 as well, and number 13 as well. So I really don't see what the kerfuffle is all about. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you for allowing me to come back. Well, you probably don't live opposite one. My only other comment is this point about the guttering, because it is built quite close to the boundary. How does the person then actually maintain their guttering? Well, I know it probably comes into building regs, but they're going to have to go into the next door's house to maintain their guttering, so they're built so close to the boundary. Do we allow that?
Well, again, I mean, that is the case on occasion, that there is guttering or something that is so close that they need to maintain through an agreement with the neighbour. I mean, that is something that does happen. I mean, this is a flat roof extension. I would expect there to be a small parapet, in fairness, rather than guttering on that side that would then run the water towards the rear of the extension. That's the usual way of achieving that, in which case there wouldn't be any guttering to maintain. But again, that's kind of detail that gets sorted out at building regulation stage.
I was going to go for the vote, but okay, real quick, Councillor Isley.
Well, yeah, you didn't give me a chance to come back before. I did have my
Sorry.
hand up. Yes, just going back to the light pollution issue, it wasn't very clear. What I was thinking of is that likely to disturb neighbours, light in their bedrooms, for instance? Should it be sort of a condition that the glass is smoked in some way to at least damp down the light? Like, it was very unclear from the drawing exactly the effect of those roof lights would have on people, but that was just a thought, and I don't know if the officer could give better advice on that.
I mean, as I say, it's not too dissimilar from just standard windows that you would have. Personally, I'm not sure it would be necessary to insist they're smoked, but again, if you want to put that forward as a condition, then that could be put forward, and if seconded and agreed, could be added. I'm not personally sure it's hugely necessary though myself.
Same here, yeah. Usually, I mean, we've got one next door like that, and you don't really see it in the bedroom as much, the light, because it's a flat roof. If it was angled, it's a different story, but I'm fine to go along with what the councillors want on this occasion. Right, so should we go to the vote? Yep. So with the conditions, if we're happy with those, officers have recommended for approval, so all those in favour of approval.
Point of order, Chairman, plus the additional removal of PDR as proposed by Councillor Kaufman.
Yes, that has been included.
Okay, right.
Yeah. Yep, happy with? Did you want that read out?
No.
Okay, for that. Okay, great. So, all those in favour of the approval of the application, we can have? Councillor Pond, your microphone, please.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's 5, Chairman.
Okay. And all those against?
That's 1, Chairman.
And the rest absentations?
8, Chairman.
Thank you. So I have taken this application has been approved. Okay, so if we could move on to item number 13, which is 51 Alges Road.
Thank you, Chairman. We are back to Alges Road again.
Whistle tool.
So this application is for a first floor side extension. So alterations to the roof, which include a rear dormer and front roof lights and a new garage door. The proposal is before members as there is an objection from the Town Council and one neighbour. The application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. The property is one of a pair of semi-detached houses situated on Algers Road. Yep. The properties benefit from distinct feature windows to the front, which follow through to the neighbouring detached property. So this is the application site here. The rear of the property, I think you'd probably say, is less characterful. The proposed first floor side extension would be built atop the existing garage, which would also be enlarged. The flank window in the neighbouring property, seen here, is a secondary window that serves an ensuite. This shows the rear of the detached neighbour. This is a view from within the garden of the neighbouring site. So the existing house, this is the existing property. The existing house is a 4-bed property with the attached garage here. The proposal would enlarge the existing garage slightly to the rear, bringing this in line with the neighbour's rear wall, and would also erect a first floor side extension that would be set 1 metre off the boundary and would be entirely adjacent to the flank wall of the adjacent neighbour. The new dormer and front roof lights would create a 6th bedroom in the roof space. Whilst a dormer of this size would likely constitute permitted development, this proposal requires planning consent due to the external zinc cladding. This shows the existing and proposed street scene. The first floor element, as I say, would leave a 1 metre gap to the shared boundary and is set 2.4 metres back from the front elevation. This would ensure that it has a subservient appearance and would not result in a terracing effect. These are the existing and proposed rear elevations. The proposed dormer would not be unduly detrimental to the appearance of the dwelling, and subject to a change in materials could be built under permitted development. It's not considered that there would be any significant harm to the amenities of the neighbour or the character or appearance of the street scene, and therefore the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Back to you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. We've got a couple of speakers registered for this one. So the first one to speak would be the objector, who is Greg Mason. Yourself, is that yours? Yeah. Please go and state your case.
Thank you. Yeah, so thanks a lot for the site visit that a number of people came on and the opportunity to speak. And since I sat here last month, the proposed plan, as you're aware, has changed dramatically, with 2 major extensions being removed from the plan. And that only happened because I emailed you about it. So thanks for helping to improve the situation. Although these 2 rear extensions have been removed, it kind of creates a crazy situation where 2 sensible low-impact extensions, which were on the original plan, have now been removed, but now an unacceptable 2-storey extension still remains. So there's 3 key reasons why I think you should refuse this application. The first one is the inconsistency with the recent planning refusal next door at 53 Algers Road. In many ways that was very similar to 51, but the main point for refusal on that was the impact on the street scene, whereas 51 actually has a higher street scene impact than 53. So to approve this application would be inconsistent in light of the refusal of 53. That only happened literally a month ago. Point 2 is the lack of clarity regarding the boundary wall and the garage demolition. We don't actually know where the new boundary wall is. The rear wall is moving back by 1.5 metres, and the area of the garage is staying the same, which means the boundary wall must be moving, but it's not on the plan. This breaks planning standards and hides the fact that this probably won't be a garage. So the garage back wall is moving, the side wall has to be moving, and we know from the plan that the bricks in the front wall are being replaced. So basically every brick in the garage is being removed or replaced, but we're told that the garage isn't being demolished, it's only the garage door being replaced. So I don't really understand how such an inaccurate description can be allowed. So at a minimum, the plan must show the location of the boundary wall and include a condition that the garage is actually not demolished. And then finally, point 3, the main point, is the terracing effect, which still remains in the plan. And I fundamentally disagree with the officer's claim that there's no terracing effects. If you look at the diagrams I've sent you, it's very clear that there is. And that's why permission has never been granted for this type of extension in Algiers Road. Algiers Road has detached and semi-detached properties, and I urge you to keep it this way. And there's also the fact that this new room directly overlooks my patio and affects the light to the side window, as I showed, as you've seen on the diagram. So to sum up, I urge members to refuse this application on the grounds of the resulting terracing effect, overlooking a loss of light to my home, and to be consistent with the refusal at number 53. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to come back on that? And we've got the next speaker is applicant's agent, Mr. Molines.
Yes, hello, thank you. Good evening. Yeah, basically, well, to give a bit of background, for this application, we went for a pre-application before. This is a householder application for an extension to a family house to gain additional space for a family that needs the additional space. I'm going to read you just an excerpt from the pre-application, which reads just like, in terms of the proposed design, the rear box dormer is acceptable. It would actually fall within the confines of permitted development. And however, with regards to the first floor side extension, we expect a minimum of 1 meter set in from the common boundary at the first floor level and above to avoid the terracing effect. So basically, that's pretty much what we did with the design. The first floor extension is set back by 1 meter. We believe it's subservient to the main house, to the main building. And if I may, well, there's a couple of things the objector mentioned about the boundary wall being moved. I would like for you to clarify that to me, to be honest, because I don't see how any boundary wall is moved. It's clear on the drawings that the boundary wall stays in place. Then, if I may point out the window which we're talking about, the window that might be subject to loss of light, or it's actually right on the boundary, and it's top-hang window. So in fact, when the window opens, it projects into number 51's property. It goes beyond the boundary line when the window is open. Yeah. In terms of materials, finishes, we're planning to match all the materials except for the dormer, which is why the dormer is proposed on the planning. And at the end of the day, well, you mentioned also on the garage that it shows new bricks on the drawings, so that might be an inconsistency. The proposal is to enlarge the front door of the garage. So basically the opening is going to have to be made bigger, and subject to structural consideration and construction drawings, which have not been prepared yet, obviously, since we don't have planning. Yeah, some of the bricks might need to be replaced, and all the bricks to be replaced will be to match existing bricks. Again, I don't see, I really don't understand why the objector says the boundary wall is going to be moved, because it's not, really. It's clear on the drawings, to my belief. And we think the terracing effect is avoided in the sense that the extension is set back by 2.4 meters. It's clear on the elevations. We're following all the roof pitch. We're matching eaves height and ridge height to the existing. We're matching eaves height with the neighbor, and we're matching eaves height with the lowest section of the house at number 51. Also, we followed all the due process, doing the pre-application, following the pre-application advice to the T, and then submitting the application for the section of the proposal that we thought it was less contentious. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we've got councillors for this one. I can see Councillor Juggia's got a hand up. Or Councillor Corbett, one of you. That's it.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just before I start, this point around this boundary wall, I don't know, can we look at the plan again, the floor plan for the garage extension? I'm not quite sure where the confusion was, but maybe you can explain it to us, Mr. Courtney. So is that back wall moving backwards?
Yes, so let me just flick. So this is the existing rear wall of the garage. It's here. As you can see, it's stepped in from the rear wall of the neighbour, but the proposal would bring that flush with the neighbour and just bring that out. So yes.
Okay, so that's quite clear that it's coming back a bit. Okay, fine. I think it was really hard to judge this application just based on the floor plans, and the site visit was really, really useful. It's hard to visualize what it would look like, but being there, and especially standing in the neighboring property's garden, you can see what kind of impact it's going to have. So I think there's two main things that I've considered with this application, and the first being the appearance of the locality. So this is the terracing effect. I know it's set back a metre from the boundary, but the reason why it doesn't really help with the terracing effect is because the neighbouring property goes up to the boundary line. So if you normally had two properties that were both a metre away from the boundary line, it would help with that non-terracing effect, basically. But having the neighbouring property be at the boundary line and this one being a metre away, it doesn't help enough. And I think you can see that when you're at the site quite clearly, that there is still definitely a terracing effect, in my opinion. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the impact on the neighbour. When you stand, and I think if you flick back to some of the photos that were taken, I think the one where the planning office took it from standing in the neighbour's garden. Yeah, that one. Like, you can see exactly where that extension is going to go, and it is overbearing, and it's a loss of privacy. That area is like a patio area which leads to the sort of the kitchen dining area, but you can just see there's a real sense of enclosure once that side extension goes up. I struggle. I feel sorry for the neighbours if that first floor extension goes up. It's going to be really detrimental to their lifestyle. I think in conclusion, I'm fine with the loft alterations. I'm fine with the ground floor garage extension alterations, whatever's going on there. But I'm not supporting the first floor side extension.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Corbett? Yes, please do.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, completely agree with what my fellow ward councillor said. A few other things I am concerned about. There is an original feature, a window, which is part of a vestibule in this very period Edwardian house. I mean, this is a kind of a house is symmetrical, kind of wrong word, but it's part of it's a semi-detached joint number 53, but they are period properties, and that is an original feature. Now, I think this window would be removed, which is very, very regrettable. And I don't know how much it is actually, whether we can take this in as a material consideration for the purpose of this application. And perhaps Mr. Courtney could clarify that. So that's one thing about the side window concerns me. I'm also concerned about the secondary window for number 49. That would be casting into shadow, into obscurity, because this is going to be 1 metre from that window. Although, as has been pointed out, it does open into the space of number 51, and I take into consideration. That's one thing I'd like a bit further clarification on. The rear dormer. Now, I know that could have been gone through with carried out under permitted development. But I don't quite see why we need to have these unique materials so that it is necessary to apply for planning permission. It would have been nicer if it could have been sympathetic and congruent with other properties in the vicinity. I don't know why this has to be so unique in terms of its cladding. Another concern, sorry to sort of go through these one by one, another concern is the roof lights to the front. I mean, I think they're quite big and bulky, and I am worried about whether that will provide light pollution or glare to properties opposite. And just lastly, I would say is that on the drawings, a lot of indication was meters squared, but I think there was a lack of dimensions on the plans, which made it hard to make comparisons because it was purely in meters squared. The resident number 49 did point out to me that the garage had increased in size, and yet the square meters had remained the same. So I thought that was rather strange. So I think I'll stop there. And yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Corbett. Then we've got Councillor Pond and then Councillor Owen. Microphone,
Oh,
please.
sorry. Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think on this proposal that you are dealing with a particularly pleasant, though somewhat run down, period house. This house originally formed part of Stanhope Gardens, which were developed in about 1902, I think it was, and they are a very coherent architectural statement. I think they are, without doubt, unrecognised, undesignated heritage assets. So for those reasons, I think the idea of having a dormer, a very large dormer, in the alien form of zinc cladding, which can be seen from neighbouring roads and neighbouring properties, is quite inappropriate. So that I object to. I take the point which has been made about the partial terracing effect. It's not, and because of the sheer gable end of the detached property next door, there is not very much to play for in that space. So I think there will be a terracing effect, albeit not a whole terracing effect. And I think the two-storey side extension is insufficiently subservient to the main house. And if it were ever built, I think it should be narrower, and I think it should be conditioned to have exactly the same appearance as the host house. Therefore, my view on this is that we should refuse this application on those three grounds, and on the grounds of amenity to the neighbouring properties, and expect the applicant to come back with a slightly revised form. I know we don't do way forward nowadays, but that would have been, Councillor Wagland, you would have said this is a matter for the way forward, and I think it is. But I am not convinced that this is a good scheme.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pond. Councillor Owen? You've been, thank you very much. Well, somebody listened to what I said in the beginning. Thank you. Okay, so, Councillor Ixley.
Yeah, I don't know if the officer can help with this, but reference was made to an application at number 53 being refused. And I just wondered, it was suggested, I think, by the objector that that was the reason for refusing this one, but I don't know if it's possible to make that sort of comparison.
Apologies. Yeah, I did, whilst we were talking, I did pull up the application 53. That was actually for a two-storey rear extension. It's a slightly different situation because 53 is on the corner, so obviously it's got a very visible flank elevation. They didn't extend to the side. There wasn't a terracing effect or anything like that. In that instance, it was a rear, very large rear projection that was considered to be unacceptable because it was very, very visual as you go around the corner. I can't remember what the road is. You go down there, but down that road. So I wouldn't say they're. I mean, I can show you the plans. I have them in front of me, but I wouldn't personally say they're in any way comparable.
Councillor Noaki, did you want to say something? No. Okay, great. Okay, so happy with the explanation, Councillor Wixley?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'll try and look into it further. But from what was said, there are two different situations as far as I could tell.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So I believe we could go to the vote. So officers have recommended approval for this application. So I guess I'd have to ask all those in favour of the application. If you can put your hands up, please.
It's non-chairman.
Okay. And so if we are against it, then we go to vote for all those against, please. Okay.
It's 9 chairman.
Okay, and absentees?
Yeah. So it should be 6 chairman.
So we have refused the application. We need to, that's it, yeah. So we need the proposal for refusal, if anyone's offering to.
Well, I defer to the ward members if they wish, but I think the reasons for refusal should be the two-storey extension is insufficiently subservient to the main period house. Secondly, there is a terracing effect, you can say a partial terracing effect, I think. The form of the dormer, zinc clad, which will be visible at roof level, is alien to the property, to the period property, and it will be detrimental to neighbour amenity.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just apologies, Chairman.
No
Excuse me
worries.
for just cutting in
No,
without
no,
asking
definitely.
permission.
No.
I just wanted to a couple of very quick things there. First, I would probably suggest the first two issues there are rolled into one reason. The two-storey extension being insufficiently subservient, which leads to the partial terracing effect. It kind of makes sense to have that as one reason. And then I just wanted some clarity. The impact on the amenity of the neighbours, what's that as a result of? Are we talking overlooking? Are we talking overbearing impacts? Loss of light? We can't just say loss of amenity without clarifying what that loss is.
All of the above. Overbearing, overlooking, loss of privacy. Were there any others? I said overlooking, yeah.
I'm sorry, Chairman, I don't feel confident to draft that because I was unable to get to the site.
Okay, fair point. I think
So-
Councillor Johnny has time to look at it. So.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we can draft, we have to draft the actual wording of the conditions, the reasons, as I say, just clarity on that. So, yeah, loss of amenity, overbearing impact. Are we saying loss of light? Okay, that's, I was just going to say, because it doesn't go beyond, project beyond, so loss of light to the garden could be a difficult one, but okay, if it's loss of light to the secondary window, thanks for the clarity on that. Yeah, I've got where's the materials? I've got materials.
So all those in favour of the refusal, if you can put your hands up again, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And all those
10, Chairman.
in favour of it?
Against.
Against?
That's non-chairman.
Okay. And any abstentions?
5 chairman.
Okay, great. Okay, brilliant. So, Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, it's just one thing I'd like to point out, which is an error actually in the agenda. Because it refers to representations made by the Loughton Residents Association. It's actually a Loughton Residents Plans Group. It's quite important that that's put in there.
Okay, we can amend that. Okay, so the application has been refused. Thank you. Thank you for coming along. We've got item number 14, which is 213 High Road.
Thank you, Chairman. One second, I'll put my notes. So this application is for 2 3-metre deep rear extensions.
Sorry, I just would notify Councillor Gabbage has left. Okay,
So yeah, 2 3-metre deep rear extensions consisting of 1 ground floor addition and 1 ground and lower floor addition. It's before committee due to an objection from the parish council and 1 neighbour. The application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Apologies, it's not hugely clear here, but the site is L-shaped and doglegs around the rear of number 215 High Road. The rear part of the garden, you've seen here, is within the green belt. However, the dwelling itself is not. This shows the front of the house. Works are currently taking place to extend the roof in line with a previous approval. This shows the rear of the property. As can be seen, this land does slope down towards the rear. The dwelling already benefits from a ground and lower ground floor rear projection with access to the lower ground floor from the garden, although not at the moment as they're doing works. This shows the relationship to number 211 High Road. This flank window here is considered to be a secondary window. This is a current view from the application site, from the dwelling, into the neighbour's garden. So the proposal would add a 3-metre ground floor extension to the south side and a 3-metre ground and lower ground floor extension to the northern side here. Both would be flat roofed with roof lanterns. Unfortunately, I'm not sure this is going to be very useful, these plans. They're very, very dark, so apologies for that. But there won't be any alterations to the front of the dwelling as a result of this application. So both of these are the existing and proposed. The extensions are designed to reflect the style and appearance of the dwelling. So, as I say, it's not, unfortunately, very clear with these dark plans, but the northern lower ground and ground floor one would be here, where my cursor is, and just here is the roof light, and the 3-metre one would be here, and again, that's the roof lantern there, so that's where the roofs are. So as I say, they're designed to reflect the style and appearance of the dwelling. They'd both be stepped away from the shared boundaries by 1 metre. Here you go. So this shows the dogleg site. So it's worth noting this application is a revised scheme to one previously refused, which was refused solely on the harm from a roof terrace that was proposed above this extension here. This element has been removed from the current scheme, and a condition has been suggested restricting access to the flat roofs. Since there's no other harm previously identified, and this is again concluded in this application, the proposal is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Back to you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So we've got 2 speakers for this application. The first one is the Chigwell Parish Councillor, Councillor Jeff Cope. Over to you, Councillor Jeff Cope.
Thank you. This is one of a series of applications on this site that have come through. This further proposed extension would create what the parish consider is an overbearing and overlooking property. We support neighbours' concerns and planners' observation about the loss of light that this creeping increase in size would cause. Only a few months ago, a significant upward extension was granted, and this latest proposed addition, whilst removing a very large roof terrace from the design that was previously refused, remains an overbearing and overly large further extension. Whilst the proposed footprint is not in Greenbelt, much of the garden is, as you have heard, and there is a very large garden room that has been constructed there, apparently under permitted development, as no planning application has ever been submitted that we've seen. This latest proposed extension is considered by the parish to be an over-intensification of the plot, and the parish supports local requests from residents that this application be refused. Thank you.
Thank you. And we also have the next speaker, Michael Surridge. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to start by just saying that this obviously is the second application that we've had refused. The first time round, the application was rejected on the roof terrace, which, liaising directly with the planning application, we reduced that down to a bare minimum to try and get that through to please the neighbour next door. That was rejected, and subsequently from that we've removed that from the scheme completely. The proposed extension on the side of 211 doesn't protrude any more than their existing. If you look on the drawing, they've got an extension which is on the back, and the proposed extension that I've drawn there doesn't hardly protrude their rear extension by anything at all. There is no grounds that I can see for any loss of light. It's not overbearing the neighbouring property, as the windows that are already in the existing building will only come out, and they are exactly the same windows that are going to be used. In terms of overdeveloping the site, I think if you have a look at the footprint of this particular residential property, we're only talking about bringing these two extensions out by 3 metres. It's not much at all if you compare the size of the building, I'm sure you will agree. For that purpose, I recommend that this application is approved with conditions on that basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've got 2 ward councillors with us. Councillor Sunga, Councillor Rizvi. Sorry, if you could...
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. In principle, I don't have any objections purely based on planning grounds. I do feel rather perplexed as to why a property which is already so large in footprint and is a very prominent property on High Road would feel the need to extend outwards by 3 metres, but I guess that's a different argument. The planning officer's report is quite detailed, actually, and it covers a lot of really important points that were raised by the objector. I think the boundary is quite generously screened by quite high trees, and the point about overlooking, actually it's already kind of the extension at 211 is already I think looking at a secondary window is what I noticed on the report. So I think the proposal is respectful. It maintains a 1 meter's distance away from the shared boundary, which again, given the screening of the trees as well as the actual garden footprint is quite adequate in my view. I think it's a fair design. The removal of the roof terrace on the revised application is also quite appropriate. So purely on planning grounds, I don't have any objections to it, but happy to listen to the views of other members.
Councillor Sunga.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a very difficult one, given the fact that in Chigwell High Road, many of the bigger properties have got basements. So, I mean, in terms of basements, I think majority of them got basements. It's a fairly large house. Most of them are down High Road. And like Councillor Rizvi said, on planning grounds, there don't seem to be anything that we could find grounds to refuse this application. It's a very difficult application, I must say, because then, other than 211 that's objected, loss of light, again, the officers are quite satisfied there isn't any loss of light. I'm finding it extremely difficult how we could actually refuse this application, but I'm still open to other members maybe chipping in, see what we can come up with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other councillors? Councillor Pond.
Well, this is just a comment on Councillor Rizvi's question. He can't understand why such a large house is being proposed for extension. I think the answer to that, and other members will know it as well as I do, that this is Chigwell, and this is Chigwell Village to boot. And it's the sort of thing that goes on in your average village, isn't it? So, on planning grounds, I don't think this is unacceptable. It's not very different from the majority of houses fairly near in the vicinity in Chigwell High Road. But the name of the game in Chigwell is large, large and larger still.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Pond. So if there's no other comments or anyone? No. The officers have recommended for approval of this application. So all those in favour of the application, if you can have your hands up.
Chairman.
Okay, and all those all those against?
None, Chairman.
Okay, and absentees?
3, Chairman.
3. Thank you. The application has been approved. Thank you. And item number 15, which is exclusion of public and press. And thank you all for bearing with me for my first one.
Chairman, can I just say, well done for chairing your very first meeting. Well done.
Thank you. Yes, sorry for all the goof-ups. Thank you.